The Holy Gospel according to St. Luke, the 7th chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. Then Jesus and his disciples arrived at the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. As he stepped out on land, a man of the city who had demons met him. For a long time, he had had no clothes, and he didn't live in a house, but in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he fell down before him and shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many times it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, but he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the wilds. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" He said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. They begged him not to order them to go back into the abyss. Now there on the hillside a large herd of swine was feeding, and the demons begged Jesus to let them enter these. So he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. When the swineherds saw what had happened, they ran off and told it in the city and in the country. Then people came out to see what had happened, and when they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told them how the one who had been possessed by demons had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them, for they were seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him. But Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." So he went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. You may be seated. It was 7 years ago this very week that Pastor Clemente Pinckney was one of 9 people who were killed while they were attending a Bible study at Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston. 7 years before that, not this week, Clem graduated from Lutheran Theological Southern Seminary, marching just a few places ahead of me because his name started a little bit earlier in the alphabet. I didn't know him that well, but it was not a big class. We all knew everyone some. Clem was killed by a young man who was a confirmed member of a Lutheran church in the same town as our seminary. I know that Lutheran church didn't try to teach him to act like that, but somehow he learned. He learned hate. He learned the awful lie of white supremacy, And he learned the lie that often goes with it, which says it's okay to use violence as long as your cause is right. Since then, Lutheran churches, not just in South Carolina, recognizing that we had a double connection to what happened that day, as well as a connection just because we're human, we have promised to do our part in making sure that kind of thing stops happening. One of the ways we've done that is by adding a commemoration to our calendar, the first 21st century commemoration. Despite that, how much progress do you really think that we have made in the last 7 years? That happened this week in 2015. On this week in 2022, 3 people were shot and killed at a church in Alabama. We don't yet know the shooter's story, but the truth is that whatever his story is, we have problems. Not just as Lutherans, but simply as humans. We have problems that are big and bad and complicated, and therefore difficult to solve. And in the face of that, it's easy to just give up and go home and take a nap and try to forget. When that doesn't work, we make excuses. That doesn't affect me, I'm a better parent. That's not my problem, I'm not gay. Race doesn't really exist anyway. It wouldn't have happened if someone else had a gun. That's just the way it is, and there's nothing we can do about it. And so we end up with more hate and blame and indifference and apathy, which sometimes feel even worse. In ancient times, and in some cultures still today, when you were dealing with evil, especially an evil you couldn't totally understand, you usually blamed it on evil. Literally, some kind of supernatural evil power must be at work. Generally, demons. In an extreme case, they believed that demons could actually possess you. And when that happened, there wasn't a lot that you could do about it. People are natural creatures. We exist within the natural order. Demons are supernatural. It's impossible to even resist them for very long. The man in today's story had an extreme version of this extreme problem. He couldn't be around other people. He couldn't even wear clothes. He lived in tombs. He had to be chained up for his own safety. It would obviously take something very seriously evil to mess someone's life up that badly. Today we might try to give him a different diagnosis, but for the purposes of the story, it really doesn't matter why his life was messed up. It matters that it was. The neighbors did the best they could, but what could they do? They tried to at least keep him alive. Based on the knowledge and the resources they had, that was the best they knew how to do for him. Until one day, Jesus was there. None of them even knew how to communicate with the man, but Jesus knew. None of them could name the evil that was destroying his life, but Jesus could. None of them could help this man, but Jesus did. When Jesus commanded the demons to leave, they left. It was impossible for them to resist. Don't get distracted by the pigs. The pigs are not the point of the story. The man is the point. All of that destructive force, the awesome force that drove a whole herd of pigs off a cliff, all of that was contained inside one person. And now he is free of that. He's free to learn from Jesus and to go back to his community and proclaim good news. He's free now to be just as human as all the rest. We don't talk about demons as much nowadays, but I think we still know what it's like to be in the presence of evil. We see it in the news. Whether there are literal demons or not, evil is definitely real. But evil's days are numbered. Jesus has just arrived. Jesus is right here. And wherever there are demons, whether they are literal demons or forces like white supremacy and misogyny and homophobia, violence and hate, Jesus is in the business of casting that stuff out. Wherever our lives are held captive by forces of evil, whether supernatural or all too natural, Jesus is in the business of setting us free. And Jesus gives us a new name, child of God. That doesn't mean that all we can do now is sit and wait for him to do his thing. What would have happened to the man in the story if his neighbors just left him on his own? They couldn't do much for him, but they did limit the harm. They kept him alive long enough for him to meet Jesus. So we are called to do what we can with the knowledge and resources we have in the face of evil. Maybe we can't solve racism in the next year or even 7, but we can go out of our way to listen to people of color, to hear their stories. Maybe we can't solve homophobia either, but we can tell our LGBTQIA brothers and sisters that they are beloved children of God. Maybe we can't completely eliminate violence in all the world, but we can reject violence in our own lives. Maybe we can't stop hate everywhere, but we can love the people right in front of us. Love the sinner, hate the sin has not so much worked out. Maybe we could work on love the person first and see where that gets us. We won't solve these big problems in a year or 7 or maybe even 70. But when Jesus is here, nothing is impossible. And Jesus is here all the time. Jesus is casting out demons, defeating evil, restoring hope all the time. Jesus even uses our efforts to do what we can't do on our own. Next year, at this time, I'm sure there will be more evil in our world to lament. But I also know that we will definitely be able to proclaim how much Jesus has done. Because that's what Jesus always does. In his name, all God's people say, Amen.